course it hurts. The trick is not minding that ow, it hurts. So I can't film in the daytime because of this. And that's happening because of that. And yes, that is Admiral Akbar reminding us that, so here I am at night. But no, there's a blackout. So here I'm at night with a blackout, with candles, making fire next to things made of paper. This is the top 100 board games from Japan, part 6. This episode's board game giveaway is brought to you by Gotani and Where Am I? It did appear earlier on in this list. I'll be giving away some copies of this. Fill out that link below, fill out the form, and I'll let you know if you won. This is perhaps the oldest game in the top 100. This is our Echo, which originally came out 20 years ago. Now, this copy is a little bit of a cheat. This is the 20th anniversary from Hobby Japan, and this combines our Echo and its standalone sequel, our Echo Recycle, puts it into one box, new arts. This is a classic Japanese card game. Now, right now, Japanese trick takers are all the rage. People are talking about them all the time. There was roll and rights, cooperative games, deck builders, roll and rights, and now trick taking in Japan. But before trick takers were a thing in Japan, Japan was filled with all these quirky, odd card games, and our Echo is one of the earliest ones on that list. Now, I do like our Echo more than our Echo Recycle. Our Echo Recycle has this weird bluffing mechanic that I'm not too keen on, so when I play this one, I'll typically be playing our Echo. Now, our Echo is a really interesting game because it's a very unique theme. You're all garbage truck owners, and you're vying for control or vying for the contract for Tokyo. And you're picking up 4 different kinds of recyclable trash. Plastic, aluminum, home appliances, and cheap water bottles. Now, this is a very unique style game. So essentially you'll take, for example, like all the red cards in your hand, and you're gonna give them to the red factory. You're gonna take all the cards in the trash of the red factory and then put them into your hand. So you put in all red and you take a mix of cards, put it in there, and you're trying to manage this the best way you can. The twist is that you can't have more than 5 cards in your hand. If you do, you have to illegally dump, and each card is a negative point. The other twist is that when you give cards to the factories, if there are 4 or more cards in that queue, then those all get sent to the trash, and then you claim a prize from that factory. Now, those prize cards alone don't score you anything, but you have to have at least 2 for it to score. So you can get a 2 VP card, and that's actually worth 0. But once you get a 3 VP card, suddenly you're now at 5 points. Now with 4 or 5 players, it's kind of hard to control. But at 2 to 3 players, there's a lot more back and forth. And there's a 2-player variant on BGG that tightens it up even more, and I think it's like one of the best games to play in a nice little cafe setting. If you don't mind screaming and yelling, flipping the table, and causing a scene, because this 2-player game can really get under your skin. Now let's place this next to the fire. Hayashi Hizashi from Akazu brand makes some of the best games ever from Japan. Now, he loves train games, but what I love about his train games is that they're not as cutthroat as 18XX and like a lot of the cube rail games are. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I definitely love those games. I have quite a few in my collection, but I do think that there's an audience who like cube rail games, but aren't really interested into cutthroat versions of it. And I think if you are one of those people, then I think you should flock to Akazu brand and try out all his train games because they are very, very unique. Across the United States is a little bit of a hybrid of Euro engine building and stock manipulation. So I admit that it's not for everyone, but I really, really enjoy this game. I like how the stocks slowly come into your hand and you're trying to apply for the best ones and build that one up. I really like the back and forth of choosing whether or not you want to play more stocks. So yeah, well, you have more of a controlling interest and you score more points versus playing stocks to activate these trains and expand them, make them more worthwhile, and then at the same time, building up an engine on the map, getting gold, delivering passengers, making deliveries. I find this to be really, really different. And the variable setup keeps it fresh every single game. I do like this at the lower player counts. Now, if you really like cube rail games like I do, there aren't many cube rail games that play well at the lower player counts. And I think this plays the best at 2. And there aren't many cube rail games that play really well at 2. Let's place this one next to the fire. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Insider from Wink Games. Now, Insider plays remarkably like Werewords. So if you played Werewords, then you've played Insider, except Insider is the analog version with no app integration. Also, it fits better into your backpack. Insider is one of those classic party game designs where you see multiple variations of. Essentially, there's one master who knows the secret word. Let's say it's Twitter, and the clue that you give to everyone is dumpster fire. Then the master is going to be assaulted by everyone, taking one at a time, taking yes or no questions, and the master is going to say yes or no. Twist here is that there's an insider, and this insider will add leading questions such as, oh, is this dumpster fire a social media platform that does terrible rebranding? And you wouldn't think that 20 questions would be a really fun game and experience, but this has loads of laughs. And sometimes someone asks a question that just is so blatantly obvious that they're the insider, the whole table just pauses, looks at them, and everyone just laughs uncontrollably. This is the Black edition. This is the second edition that has a few more cards, different words, and makes it a little bit more difficult and modernizes the word flow. If you find yourself at the Oink booth and there are a plethora of games out there for you to look at, pick up Insider, you won't regret it. Another game to put by the fire. This game. How do I describe this game? This is the game that I describe to people as saying, this is a roll and write, and then it just becomes Japanese. In Madrino, you are rolling dice and designing the blueprints for an apartment. You're gonna see toilets in the middle of the kitchen. You're gonna see bedrooms without beds. You're gonna see closets leading outside. You're gonna see holes in walls, sinks next to your bed. You know, your typical flat in London or New York or some parts of Taipei, as I once lived in. The best part is that after you design your apartment and you're very proud of your apartment, you realize you get to the end of the game and there are no victory points at all. Instead, you have to hold up your apartment, show it to people, and give a pitch meeting on it, saying like, you need to move into this apartment. I mean, you always wanted a sink in the middle of your living room, right? Well, now you can have it with Madrino. And that used to really bother me, and I can really understand that it's very divisive of like typical roll and write structure and then 0 victory points in total party game. But I actually really, really love it, and I love watching people giving their pitch, trying their best to sell their apartment, and it's just a lot of fun and a very, very unique gaming experience. Now, what's even more mind-blowing with this is that now there is a second floor expansion. So after you design your apartment, you can put the second floor on top of the first floor. What? I adore this game. Easily on the list. I think it actually should be higher. Next to the fire! Perfumery is one of those very few Japanese games that when you look at it, you're like, ooh, sexy. I made an unboxing video and you can see from that video, like, it just looks so good. The component quality is amazing. Cardboard is nice and thick. All the cards have a nice linen finish and have this nice alcohol perfumery wave thing on it. It just looks absolutely gorgeous to look at. How does it play? Well, it's a typical worker placement thing. You go down, you get resources, you build up an engine, and you produce perfume components and you fulfill contracts. But the twist here is that it does a different style of drafting. Now, normally in drafting games, maybe you get a hand of cards, you take one and you pass them around. You take another one, you pass it around. Take one, pass it around. So that way your choices get more and more difficult and less exciting. But this has a winsome draft. So that way, if you pick option 1, then all the other 4 options become infinitely better. So your choices go from okay to more and more interesting. Now, Magic the Gathering players will be very familiar with the system because that's how a lot of draft cubes operate. And that style is absolutely amazing in this game. Now, you're drafting contracts and you're drafting components of your engine. So that way, like, different fragrances will turn into other fragrances, and those fragrances will turn to more fragrances, and then you're producing more and more different types of notes for the top, middle, and bottom of the perfume. Now, you fulfill those contracts and you put them there, and the contracts can actually hold one of the pieces that you need. So that way, if you can't produce it in your engine, you could use it from the contract and fulfill contracts faster and faster. Now, as you go up on those tiers, some contracts on level 1, 2, and 3, obviously it gets more and more complicated. But what gets really fascinating is that as you're drafting, you're pulling in more and more cards, and this game gets crazier, crazy, and more chaotic. Before you know, you're done. I use the word momentum a lot in my videos, and I think that that's what a lot of good games need, is that you need this momentum of building and building and building and building and getting crazier and crazier choices, and you're riding that chaos, and then it just explodes and ends in a glorious fashion. And that's what Perfumery does in this tiny little box. And oh my gosh, it's warm. Next to the fire. Board game s'mores. Now, Nikosu Dice is one of the best trick-taking games out of Japan. In fact, when I was at Tokyo Game Market this past summer, I ran into Monique and Naveen from Before We Play. Super nice people, and Naveen just looked at me and was like, Jay, I want Nikosu Dice. I don't know if you could find it. That's really hard. He proved me wrong, and he found it, and I was really happy for him. And he got not just one, but 2 copies of Nikosu Dice. And why did he look at that? Because people have been talking about this game for enough years that he flew across the largest ocean on that planet, this planet, to find a copy of this game. Not this exact copy, because this is the first edition. He got a later edition, which has much nicer artwork and cards. But about Nikosu Dice, why is Nikosu Dice great? Well, Nikosu Dice is great because half your hand are cards, and the other half are dice. And it's interesting how you have closed information and open information. And the fact that you draft your dice at the beginning of the game to determine that, and the last die that's not picked is the trump number and color. And on top of that, is as you play the game, you'll play all your cards, you'll play all your dice, all but one. And that last die is your bid for how many tricks that you win. I love that twist. Now, it can be a little bit off-putting if you are the type of person who doesn't like tiered trump in games, and that can be very confusing. People are like, haha, I have a trump number, haha, I have a trump color, haha, I have a trump number and color, haha, and it can get a little much. But this is an excellent trick-taking game, definitely one of the best from Japan, and if you can find a copy of it, definitely find one. But if you can't find a copy of this, it's not too hard to make it yourself. All you need is a whole bunch of dice and a deck of cards, and you could make your own Nikosu Dice deck. Should you trouble yourself with that? Yes, absolutely, because it's a great game that we shall put to the fire. But despite that, I think 9 Lives is a better trick-taking game. Why? Well, because I think 9 Lives is just that much more approachable. In addition to that, Allplay has done an amazing job of creating a newer edition of this that's easier to get in the West. What I like about 9 Lives is that it's also a bidding trick-taking game. And what I really like about bidding is that it kind of balances out the bad hand draws that you might get. What's really cool, though, is that when you make your bids of like 1, 2, 3, or 4, you could be winning too many bids, and then you push yourself up, and then it recycles back down to 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the same location as 1 on the rug, so if you bid there, then you can kind of push your luck to try and loop back and score exactly where you need to score. On top of that, it has that extra wrinkle that a lot of trick-taking games have, is if you want to be fuzzy, you can get a few points, or like maybe I'll get 1 or 2 tricks. Or if you want to be exact, like I will get 2 tricks and you'll get even more points. So I really like that trade-off there. And all the backs of the cards are colored. So you can actually look at the information of everyone's hand and kind of guesstimate, well, you don't have much purple, you don't have much red, I think I can do this and you won't be able to beat me because of that. And I really like that mind space that you get into when you play this game. I like it a little bit more than Nikosu Dice. I think Nikosu Dice has a nice little twist with the dice. It's really, really interesting. But 9 Lives just does it a little bit smoother and far more approachable when I teach people. If you are really interested into getting into the trick-taking craze from Japan, I think 9 Lives is probably the best trick-taking game to kind of gateway yourself into that craze, because there are a few little twists, but they're not too many, and it's very approachable, and I do think that this is something that you could start that trick-taking collection with. If it burns, we can kill it. I really hope I don't knock over one of these candles and burn my entire collection. But if you think that Japanese games are all about fun, quirky, isn't that cute, kawaii, you're wrong. Japanese games are not a monolith, and some of the best war games have come from Japanese publishers and designers. Designer Yasushi Nakagura has been designing war games for well over a decade, and Rise of the Blitzkrieg, I think, is his best game that he's ever made. Rise of the Blitzkrieg has 2 players reenacting the German invasion of France in 1940. Now, there are a lot of reasons why I love this game, and here are a few. Multiple routes to victory. There are 2 victory cards every single game, and there's a deck of victory condition cards, and you shuffle them up. You give 1 face up and 1 face down, and the rest you just throw away. So every time you play the game, you'll have a different face up victory condition, so it'll feel fresh and new. But at the same time, at the end of the game, one of those cards is face down, and you don't know what it is, and your opponent doesn't know what it is, and you could flip it over, and maybe Germany wins. The other thing I love about this game is that there is a lot of bluffing. Germany has all of its forces unevenly divided among 3 bases on the map, and they're all covered by boxes. So you don't know how many units are under that box. And one of the ways that you could win is just invading the base and completely annihilating all the units there. And one game that I played, I had no units in that box. He had one unit that was like literally like 2 spaces away, but he was too terrified to enter in that base. At the end of the game, I lifted up the box and his face just melted as he just realized that he could have invaded that at any time and instantly won the game. Bluffing! I love it! Another reason I love the game, I love that when one side has to control multiple forces and they don't always work well together. So as the Allies, you're controlling the French units, you're controlling the British units, and you're controlling the Dutch units. And you kind of have to make them all work together, and they can't all move together at the same time. So you kind of have to do the slow, delayed dance as you play your cards. Another reason I like this game is that it's a card-driven game, and I love card-driven war games because I don't know, something about that just really speaks to me. A really cool thing is that you have a deck of cards, and then every round you can just choose which cards of the deck that you want. But as you pick your 6 out of your deck, you could choose. It's not a random draw. You choose which 6 cards you're gonna have. Then your opponent randomly removes one of those cards from your hand, and it can be so frustrating, and you kind of have to plan for that. And I really like that nice little twist in that design. Curious about this game? You like this game? Well, good for you that Nuts Publishing, a French publisher, picked up a few of Yoshiki Nakagura's games, and they will be releasing The Rise of Blitzkrieg later on this year or maybe next year. And I cannot wait to grab my hands on it. Oh my god. They think these candles are here for a top 10, but really, they're here for you, Floristry. This game is gorgeous. The box insert is amazing to look at. As soon as you open up this box, you'll see this beautiful insert, beautiful dice, beautiful card components. I can't explain how gorgeous this game is. Even the box insert is part of the game. So if you like Splendor, then I think you'll really like Floristry because this is basically Splendor with dice. Now what I do love about this is that there is a drafting mechanism of turn order. So after you take your turn, you move your player unit to decide where you're gonna go next round. And I do like that because Splendor definitely gives the first player a strong advantage. And this has rounded play, so it can shift at other times. So maybe you want more dice. Maybe you want this bonus to just go first. Maybe you want more flexibility with your dice. Who knows? But I like that you have that option. In addition to that, there are dice in this game, and you are drafting dice in this game. And when you roll the dice, you'll get one resource, and then you'll use this resource to eventually buy cards. And again, you build in from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. And unlike other, games similar to Splendor, this one stops at a hard 8. So as soon as you get X amount of flower cards, and boom, it's over. You gotta be really careful when you buy cards 3 or 4 or 5, because maybe you want to get those little points, but you really need to go after those higher level cards and really push that score up because you don't just want to fool around and just get willy-nilly stuff, and you really need to have a long-term strategy as you play this game. Now, I do like that there's a balance of going slow and getting those nice big point cards, or taking the fast route, just getting lots of cards at any of the game really quickly. Everything in this game, from the dice drafting to the component quality to just how smooth the game feels, I can't recommend Floristry enough. And not to mention that Floristry is damn sexy. Now, if you like trick-taking games, and if you think they are the bee's knees, and you just can't help but play every single trick-taking game on the planet, then you need to be playing Trick Takers because, wow! Number 1, best quality production of a game I've seen in a very long time. Everything about this game just screams quality. From the way the cards feel, how they shuffle in your hand. Oh, butter! Trying to think of Roots and a trick-taking game. pushed together. You're only going to play at most 15 tricks. That's it, 15. 3 rounds of 5 cards, and you have a 5-card hand. So it's really, really tight. Now, each round of the game, you're going to be drafting these characters, and each character does different things. Some of them give you really powerful cards. Some of them are really good at shooting the mood. Some of them allow you to collect cards, and you score points from the cards that you collect. The Fox is a gambler, and he has the sexiest die I've seen in a board game. But that alone, you have 8 characters to choose from, and every time you play the game, it can be completely random which characters you use. But if you want to play even with more characters, and 8 characters is enough, there's an expansion with even more characters, bringing the total up to a crazy, ridiculous number. And I don't think it's necessary, but maybe you get bored of these characters and you want more. You still want more? Well, there's another expansion. What? I do not recommend this game for everyone. If you are into trick-taking games and you want to deep dive into a game, then Trick Takers is easily a good choice for you. This is one of the games that you just get a trick-taking group together and you just deep dive this thing and you play it again and again and again. You get to know all the characters and you develop a meta within your game group and you just have an absolute blast playing this game. Rumor is that there's going to be a Kickstarter that has an English version of all of these. Maybe not this one, but definitely these 2. Follow me on social media, and when I know, I'll let you know.